So there is a common narrative about who gets to be a filmmaker. It usually begins in the right postcode, it passes through the right film school, or if not that, at least the right university, the right connections, the right room. But according to me, that narrative about who gets to be a filmmaker is incomplete. Because despite all of this being true, despite everything in the industry and this society stacks against people, some people are coming through, defying that narrative. Not many, very few in fact, but they do come. They push, they teach themselves what they were never taught. They spent years in advertising agencies, in factories, in small local cinemas, learning by looking, learning by doing, until the film they always knew they had in them is finally real. Finally in a cinema, finally being watched. They defy the narrative and then they rewrite it. My guest today is one of those people. The person I have with me today is Abid Khan, a British-Pakistani writer, director, and producer. His Tibet feature Granada Nights released theatrically across the UK and Spain in 2021. He won Best Feature at the Bonds Film Festival and Best Cinematography at the Premios Lorca Festival de Cine. He is a BIFA Springboard alumnus and was also selected for Rotterdam Lab in 2025. Abid, it is such a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the nice introduction as well. Pleasure to be part of this.
Thank you. Before we start talking about the wonderful things you are doing, I really want to know, how are you doing, Abid? Where are you right now in your life and in your work?
I guess, well, it's a good question. I mean, I'm always trying to figure out where I am in life. And right now I'm juggling so many different projects. And, I think the film industry it's such a Wild West sometimes. And you don't know if you're making progress or not, but slowly I find myself kind of bit by bit making one step after another. With the film markets, is the nice little milestones where I kind of judge like where I am kind of in my work and in my life generally. But it's been great so far.
So it's been great so far. That's how we start the podcast. So we'll hear about how you have been so great, how you are doing these wonderful things you are doing in this podcast in details. We want to know the real process of making cinema and making cinema transnational and international. So Abid, I'll bring you to the start of your journey, actually. Can you tell me a bit about what inspired you to make films?
I guess, it goes back to my childhood. I guess putting this in context, I'm born to kind of Pakistani parents who emigrated to the UK in the 70s. I grew up in the 80s. I was born in the 80s, and I was I guess, found cinema through television kind of in the late 80s and 90s, because I kind of live in a majority white town. There's not many cinemas kind of in nearby. I come from a working class background. There's not many Asian families, so there were two options for me at that time as an introvert, and it was either kind of staying inside and being sheltered in a way. I had a great childhood, but it was mostly in front of the television box, and I kind of learned, I guess, my early forms of filmmaking or storytelling was through TV. And this is also kind of in the late 80s, early 90s, where we had 4 or 5 TV channels. So we didn't have a whole choice of what we have today with Netflix and Amazon. And like I mentioned, the local cinemas were almost about 30 minutes away. So it was really difficult to kind of find content that I could dive into, or world cinema. So everything was really very much curated by the BBCs and the Channel 4s. And you kind of, at that time as well, you're very forced to watch something because they're on at a certain time. And I guess through them, I really started to kind of, it was a form of escapism, really, for me, because I didn't feel like I really belonged anywhere. Juggling 2 different cultures, and I felt like TV was the way I could transport myself into different worlds. And then I started to recreate certain storylines that I saw on TV with my toys and my little cars and stuff. I was playing with toy cars all the time and creating storylines, and slowly they would just kind of be more elaborate. And then later on, when I was a teenager, I started working at a local cinema, and then I started to discover kind of world cinema at that time, because every Tuesday we would play a foreign film. And then that kind of captured my imagination and my inspiration. And at that time, I was kind of going through a lot of growth as a teenager, and then, of course, went to university, and then
Hmm.
things took off from there.
Oh, yeah. Can I ask, what did you study in university? Did you study films or something?
No, I studied, well, initially my degree was computing, and then halfway through, I realized that I need to kind of follow the art form, and I changed into multimedia. I couldn't really change into film because I would have lost the 2 years that I've studied. So I slowly turned into multimedia, and I kind of saw um, that as maybe my path into cinema, if I could work on video,
Mhm.
multimedia video or video for the web. And a lot of my kind of mentors at the time were doing a lot of, like Hillman Curtis was doing a lot of videos for the internet and for Adobe. I felt like that could be a path that I could kind of tread before I go into cinema.
Mhm. No, of course, I do understand. I ask this question to every guest we have had so far in this podcast because there is a continuous debate. Like it started maybe 100 years back, but the debate is still continuing. So it's about, do you need to go to a film school to be a filmmaker? Since you haven't gone to one, but you have become a filmmaker, you are telling stories. What are your opinions about that? Do we need to go to film school to be a filmmaker?
I don't think you do, but I think, film school, the purpose of film school for me is you learn your craft in a way. You learn how to put a film together. But what it doesn't teach you is like why you should be putting a film together. And you need to understand yourself as an artist. I remember when I was at university at the time, I met Hillman Curtis. I said to him, I said, I really want to be a director. I'm really fascinated with bringing music and images together, and I'm learning this, and I'm learning this editing technique and this camera movement and stuff. And he stopped me and he was like, look, he's like, kid, I give you two pieces of advice: make stuff with your friends, but also you need to live, because you need to know, what you want to say. And at that time, I thought, well, he was a bit arrogant at the time and being a bit patronizing. So I didn't really understand it. But of course, the older I got, the more I kind of realized. And also, I realized at the time, because I didn't actually make a lot of short films when I was younger at university, because I didn't really feel that passionate about anything or that subject material that I wanted to touch upon. And it was, a lot of the films at that time were very kind of rough, sketchy,
Yeah.
um, very kind of punkish, rebellion kind of films. I come from a punk rock background and stuff, so I'm always fighting something, and I just never really felt like it was something. I was more like imitating other filmmakers. And I think film school is great. I mean, you learn the craft, you learn how to do things, you study other filmmakers, but you could also do that by, like I did, work at a cinema and watch a film 8 or 9 times. And I mean, when I was working at Robin Cinema in Camberley, it's a very small three-screen cinema. I was 16 to about 20 when I was working there. And I was forced sometimes to watch a film again and again and again. I was sat in the back making sure I look at the
Mm.
audience. And you can't help but just kind of seeing how the camera moves, seeing the shots, like seeing the craft, and you learn kind of by watching. And then, of course, as I grew older, I was looking at my some mentors and some people who I aspired to be like, and I listened to them, and I hear that they watched 3 or 4 films a day when they were younger, and they were consuming so much. So I think, film school is great to build your own network and to learn the craft, but I think there's so much more that it's
Yeah,
missing.
of
Um,
course.
you know, I mean, one thing is working with actors. I mean, a lot of film school talks about the image and talks about cinematography, but not many actually spend so much time with working with actors to
Mm.
understand kind of human psychology and things like this. So I think, for me, of course, I missed out on building a network, but I
Mhm.
built my network by going to markets and festivals and so
Yeah.
forth.
We will get to more about this because, of course, like this industry operates on networks. That's how you get work. That's how you kind of make your films possible. So I'll get back to that. I want to know more about how you do those sort of things. But before that, I want to know, of course, I understand that you grew up in an immigrant family. You were very much inspired by television and the kind of things you were watching. You went to university, shifted degree to multimedia. And of course, that helped in video making. But In between all of these, when was that moment when you decided that, okay, I want to make a film? When did that decision come about?
Um, oh God, I mean, do you mean as a feature film or just short films?
Maybe just a moment which triggered you to be a filmmaker. I don't mind like which format of film, but
Yeah, I guess, I don't think there's ever this one moment. I think there are several moments like in your
Mhm.
life that kind of course correct you into finding your purpose. So I mean, first was probably working in the cinema, and I was watching films that I could feel like I could do better, and there was that bit of arrogance, and maybe I didn't really understand the credits or like the amount of people and work that it takes to make a film. But there was
Right.
that desire. It's like, no, I feel like I know, like, why did they move the camera there? I know, I think I would have moved it somewhere else. So there's this that bit of arrogance that kind of drives you first, and and a bit of craziness and stupidity in a way that you can pick up a camera and make a short film. And then once you start making a couple, you realize, okay, no, I need a bigger crew. I need finances. I need a bigger setup. But I guess like I was experimenting a lot from about 16,
Mhm.
17 up through university and maybe after university a little bit. But I
Yeah.
think it was only when I found something to say that I felt really passionate. I wanted to take a deep dive. And when I decided I wanted to tell a particular story, and I didn't go to film school, I was like, okay, where can I get this information about? How can I do this diet? Okay, I'm watching 3 or 4 films, a week, maybe not a
Mhm.
day because have to study and also work. But wherever I could find and watch a film that I'd never seen before, I would watch. I would go to the BFI South Bank and watch an art house
Mhm.
film. I would watch a foreign film. I'd go to film festivals, but I do deep dive into DVD commentary from directors and try to understand, like, the Finches of this world, how they kind of construct a film. I would dissect my favorite film, like watch it 20, 30 times and look at like why did it did this, how they did it. Um, Went to short courses like on everything from cinematography
Mhm.
to script writing to sound to working with actors to directing, like across the board, because I wanted to know about everything. I wanted to know how everything worked. So if I'm going to have those conversations with different crew members, I'm not lost. I know
Yeah.
the I know the fundamentals of sound mixing. I know the
Mhm.
different types of makeup that you could, foundation that you put on. I learned so much about the whole kind of process, and I was so interested in it, and I was consuming it like a sponge. So every talk, every course, every short course that I would go on,
Mhm.
every evening class, every book. I think I've got 8, 9, 10 books of screenwriting. And now I don't rely on them. I don't look at them at all because it's an industry in itself. But so I just consume everything like a sponge because I thought I owed it to myself to make the best film that I can possibly make. So I need to put the work in, and I need to um just know as much as possible, learn as much as possible. And I think that comes to kind of like I mean, a lot of South Asians have this as well, this work ethic, because our parents, when they came over and they emigrated to these countries, they did, it was amazing what they did, and we stand on the shoulder of giants in a way, but they always enforced like work hard, work hard, work hard, and um that I've kind of fed into
Yeah.
my work. But it's also interesting in a sense as well, because with Asian families, going into the arts and film back in the 80s and 90s is very frowned upon.
Yeah.
So um, it's not an easy way to be young and say, look, I want to be a director. I want to get into cinema, because you're really fighting a lot. So I think for me, it was through computing, multimedia, and film. Um,
Right.
so yeah, it was multiple decisions over a long period of time that made me
Yeah.
decide to get into it.
That is such a beautiful answer. I'm absolutely loving how you talk about being a sponge to be a good director, to be a good filmmaker, because it's absolutely important to absorb everything around you. And that's such a beautiful answer. Thank you. And I
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's like it's sometimes you can't switch it off. You may be late for a flight and then you stop because you see the light kind of breaking through the glass, or you see a family kind of arguing, and you kind of stop and watch and kind of it. I think you need to take in everything. You need to be this
Yeah.
kind of
Ah,
antenna for everything.
Abid, since we were talking about growing up in a South Asian family and then deciding to be a filmmaker, that is usually not the common path for us because it's not a like safe career. You don't know where you're going to end up. So of course, like it's very understandable because growing up in an immigrant family means you are putting in so much of your time, effort, and energy, and you are fighting the world to stand still. And coming from that background, when you were becoming a filmmaker, was it particularly hard for you? How did your family and friends react?
The industry is changing more and more, which is a great thing. But back in the 80s and 90s, of course, when you first generation of immigrants who moved to the country, they want you to do well. They want you to get a good job, and so the arts isn't really considered in their mind as something that's a solid job or a job that could bring good value, good money. And that's why you see a lot of Asians, I believe, going into being doctors and bankers and lawyers. Um, and also that's one side of it, but the second is you don't see those paths open. You don't see any, I don't know, any British Asians, or hardly. I'm talking about maybe three or four, a handful that I could see in the industry. So you don't see those career paths. So you feel like it's not for you. It's not, even if you're super talented, that's only half the work. You really need to get to know everybody and luck and even then it's like we're not flooded in this country with like so many kind of British Asian producers and directors. Now it's started to change, which is a wonderful thing. But
Yeah.
during the 80s and 90s, it was extremely difficult. I mean, even content on TV, the only Asian families that you would see would probably be a small family on EastEnders, and they were given a small subplot.
Yeah.
So it, we didn't feel like, I personally didn't feel like I belonged
Mhm,
in this industry, but that was the general feeling I think I've always had in my life, being a British Pakistani, like feeling like I don't really belong anywhere.
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that. I'll come back to again, like how do you feel about this belongingness now? But before I move into that, I want to know a bit more about your films actually. So I just watched the trailer of Granada Nights. I haven't got a chance to watch the film yet, but I'm really, really, really intrigued. Tell me about your first film, Granada Nights. Where did that story come from?
I guess, the story came from, I mean, following on from what Mike figure said, go live. I traveled a lot. I traveled to a lot of countries. I lived in a lot of different countries.
Mhm,
And one of those places I lived in was Granada in Spain. And I was completely mesmerized by the place, by the people. Um, I think what I really loved about it was that I met people from all around the world, and everyone was in this same kind of boat of exploring this city and the different cultures that Granada had.
mhm,
It was a hotbed of different cultures. I mean, historically, it was um, a place that many artists and scientists from different cultures would come and discuss and we had like Christianity living with Judaism and Islam, and everything was peaceful and amazing. And now today you have this big Erasmus city, and you have all these students from all around Europe, but also the States and Africa and the Far East. And but you have this shared experience, and it creates this kind of third space. And I felt like I finally belonged in that third space. I think, this goes back to kind of growing up and who I am, but like, I think this sense of belonging I wanted to capture. And I think that was really the inspiration and all the friendships and all the people I've met in Granada. And I wanted to kind of capture that connection, really. So that was the inspiration. That's what drove me to kind of make the film.
mhm. Oh wow, that shows it through even the trailer, and I'm really looking forward to watch the whole film because now I'm even more intrigued. If it's about a third space, I mean, I personally relate to that very strongly, so I'll definitely be looking forward to seeing the film. Thank you, Abid. And if I remember correctly, you raised the money yourself. You did crowdfunding to fund this film. Can you tell us a bit more about what did it actually take to get this film made?
Yes, I mean, the crowdfunding was a small, very, very small portion. I think the whole reason we did the crowdfunding was to build an audience. I
Yeah,
think nowadays you can't really just do a crowdfunding campaign to raise money for your film. You have to almost build that audience first
right.
before you do the crowdfunder. But at that time, the whole purpose wasn't to raise money for the film. Maybe that was the bonus. That was great, but it was to build that audience. And I wanted to build that audience in Spain and Granada because, of course, there are thousands of students. And we felt like we needed the Erasmus Student Network and all the students from all over the city to be supportive of the film, to know about the film, to help us out in the film, because we knew that years later when we come, we'll need their support. And so we created the crowdfunding campaign, but it was very targeted to the city of Granada, and we were putting stickers everywhere. We'd had a big campaign, marketing campaign, like, which was literally just me and my friend going around putting posters up everywhere around the city. But we got a huge audience, and that audience kind of grew and grew and grew. And by the time we were shooting, and also when we finished the film, it was something that I don't think I could have ever planned without crowdfunding. So crowdfunding was really that seed that kind of turned into this beautiful kind of flower of a hedge of an audience at the end of the film. But it was never really for finance. It was more audience building.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, thank you. And you are a British-Pakistani director, and you were shooting a film in Spain with a cast from multiple countries. What was that actually like on the ground? I mean, day to day on set, what was that like?
Yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, I will always do it. I think it's just, I think people from different cultures, different backgrounds, they bring something,
Mm-hmm.
and um, I love building a team. I love kind of like meeting people, trying to understand who they are, and building that family in a way. And it was just really wonderful to have people from all around the world. There was a creative decision as well, because the idea was I was trying to capture this moment where I was in Spain with all these international people living together and experiencing this study abroad program for a year. So in order to kind of capture that, I had to kind of create it behind the camera and in front of the camera. So, of course, bringing international actors together. We didn't have much rehearsal time, so we put them all into one apartment to live together. But I wanted also the crew to be like that too. And we could have put crew in different rooms, in different hotels, different apartments. So instead, we rented, one big house, and we put
Mm-hmm.
everyone together. And they didn't like it at first because they had to share a bathroom. 3 or 4 had to share a bathroom. It was a very like Spanish villa inside the city. But then they started really enjoying it. They started cooking together. They started, socializing. Literally, everyone was socializing every day, and it built this kind of almost. I was having a second Erasmus experience with
Mm-hmm.
them, and it was great because I believe that if we could capture that behind the camera, we were going to definitely capture it in front. And the actors also fed off that, and then it became something else. And I love the process of building the shoot. 'Cause sometimes we always look at the film as this end piece, but it's the process. Is I get the joy out of the process of bringing these people together and creating something. And of course, yes, like I said, it was not much rehearsal time, so we had to build those relationships really quickly. And how do you do that? You kind of make people live together and eat together and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was it was very exciting.
Yeah, that sounds like a beautiful process, actually, it does. And once the film was done, how did you get it out into the world? Was it hard to find networks to screen and distribute this particular film?
It was a bit difficult in the sense that I always say making a film is half the job, getting it out there is the other half. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I've never, like on this film, I was writer, producer, director. I had some producing support by other people, but I found it fairly quite. I wouldn't say easy, but I managed it really well. I didn't have a big problem doing it. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of people say juggling different things is quite difficult, but I didn't have a problem at all. But it was only in the release of the film that I started to get burned out, and the amount of work and stress um, was really, really quite difficult. And trying to recall now, it was COVID at the time, so a lot of film festivals were going online. So we missed out on a lot of festivals because our sales agents, we couldn't
Mm-hmm.
screen it online, and we didn't want to screen it online. So we were going to wait until COVID ends, and we weren't sure
Mm-hmm.
when that was going to be. So a few months, several lockdowns, weren't sure what we were going to do, did a few online festivals. And then I think cinemas started to open up, and then we found space because there wasn't much content and we could get in. And it was literally kind of calling up different cinemas. And because I worked in the cinema before, I kind of knew a little bit about film booking, and literally just trying to get it into as many cinemas as possible, working with a publicist, started to grow. We got a few festivals. And then it was, yeah, it just kind of grew from there. And then we did online screenings at universities. We went to about 30 universities. We did about, I think, 60, 70 screenings, online screenings, and then they became physical screenings afterwards. And that was really interesting because we talk about release, we talk about cinema release. And for me personally, it's like so great to go into the cinema and sit at the back and listen to the audience.
Of course.
And you can hear like how they react to different parts. But when we were doing the when COVID was happening, we were like, oh God, we can't go to the cinema, we can't go to film festivals, I can't be with the audience. I started to rethink why did I want to make this film? Like, what's the purpose? Was it to get it into cinemas? Was it the festival awards? It was, all these are great, but they're trimmings. I think the main idea is that I had this amazing experience in Spain. I connected with all these friends, and I wanted to share that kind of feeling of connection and belonging. And a lot of students couldn't travel or study abroad because of COVID. Everything got cancelled. A lot of first year students, international students who were coming to UK were stuck in their dorms, and they couldn't. This is their first experience of being abroad, or also university, away from the parents, stuck. So we went to universities and we said, look, I think this film could be something nice for them. It's a bit of escapism. It's a feel-good film. How about that we show it to them for free, but you guys pay for the license? And they agreed to it. And then they saw that this could be a marketing tool to encourage more people to study abroad. So we lent into that and we used it as a marketing tool, went to different universities. And then I was able to kind of like be on these calls and talk to the students afterwards. Wow. Because usually when you go to the cinema, they watch the film, people leave, right? And so when you start talking, and then I started seeing people like are crying, like during and it was it wasn't really about the film. It was kind of what they were going through. And then I remember one Chinese girl. I think that this is quite pivotal for me and my future films and my path in the future she was in tears, and I was like, are you okay? Everything was okay. She was, I really loved the film and stuff, but I think watching the film made me feel less alone in the world. Yeah. And then I realized kind of why I was kind of making this film. And this goes all the way back to kind of being this sheltered kid, like watching TV and not wanting to mix and not feeling like I belonged anywhere. And I felt like, okay, this is my voice. This is this relationship with ourselves, with loneliness, trying to connect, trying to belong. This is why I'm making films. I'm trying to express something. I'm trying to connect with other people like me. So yeah, it was an amazing, the release was an amazing experience for me.
Yeah, that is so very beautiful, so inspiring. And I was also wondering, because right now we're at a moment where we are debating a lot about if cinema halls are dying, if streaming platforms are taking over things. We are doing that discussion a lot nowadays. And when you were speaking about releasing a film to students over 30 UK universities, that seems like another conversation to have, another possibility for cinema maybe. And that is incredible. Thank you for sharing that, Abid. And I know that Granada Nights won Best Feature at the Barnes Film Festival and Best Cinematography at Premier's Lorca Festival this Cine. What did winning those prestigious awards actually mean to you, Abid?
I mean, if I'm being honest, not that, it's great. It's nice to win awards, but they don't really mean much to me. I kind of I'm very I don't really pay attention to the noise in a way. It's nice to be to be applauded but for me it's I watch my film and I enjoy it as a piece, and if people like it and people don't like it, if people give me awards or they don't give me awards, it doesn't really affect me. I mean, it's nice to be recognized. It's nice to be selected by various festivals. It's nice to be selected by the industry. It's lovely to be. I think we were part of Film London Breakthrough. I think that was one of the first things. We were super excited to be one of 4 films in the UK being selected for this. But it's kind of it's not really the reason why we make films. It's not, it's noise, and sometimes you can get caught up in that noise. And I've seen filmmakers, and I've done this myself as well to a certain extent. You get caught in doing screening after screening after screening. You live the film festival release kind of lifestyle, and you travel around the world. It's, it's very seductive. It's like you enjoying it, going to lots of parties, and you start to lose touch. So sometimes success is not a good thing. It's like you can lose yourself in success. And I think as filmmakers, we know it's so difficult to make a film, and also to make a second and third is even difficult. It's so difficult. And sometimes being in that comfortable situation where you're applauded and you've been given rewards, I mean, it's great, it's nice, but you get sometimes too comfortable. And I don't really want to feel comfortable. And I always like to feel like the rebel. I want to be fighting against something. Like I mentioned, we came from, we're a few families, Asian families in this town that we live in. I raised up a punk rock and kind of very rebellious, kind of always trying to fight something. And sometimes I don't feel comfortable when I'm applauded. I've been giving awards, and it's just, I don't know. I like to be on the outsides.
No, thank you for sharing that so honestly. Because the next question I have is not about you as an artist or as a person. It's mainly to understand what awards are going to festivals, being selected for festivals actually mean practically. So I'm going to ask you that, do these recognitions, awards, mean something practically? Do these open any more doors of opportunities for any filmmaker who are coming through?
I think, yes, definitely. I think any kind of exposure, even just being selected by a festival, you don't have to win an award. But what that does is, of course, more people watch your film, but it does open new doors to network and connect with other filmmakers, other producers. It's every path is different, I would say. Every filmmaker's path and how they go on to make a second and third film is based a little bit on their first film that they've done. And I think, I mean, looking at the festivals and markets that I've attended, it's great. It's great to get that support. It's great to have those doors open up, but there's no guarantee. It's not, you're in the room now. Now it's still up to you to work that room, and come up with something else and keep working. So I think we can't really, it's a great thing, but we can't really, you shouldn't rely on it as like, right, I'm in Sundance, I can make it now. I know a lot of filmmakers who went to Sundance and won awards, but still haven't had their films distributed. So it can open doors, but I think we need to be working those rooms as well.
Yeah, no, of course, of course. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because, of course, like in this age of social media, we do see filmmakers, producers, they are flying to festival, countries to countries, continents to continents. And of course, they are dressed in like very fancy dresses and they look amazing and they're walking the red carpets. And sometimes I personally feel like we're getting to see only the glitz and glamour side of it, but maybe we don't know what it actually takes to make a film, what it actually takes to make an art, and what it actually takes to focus on your craft. And that's why we kind of like ask these questions in this podcast, like what is the reality of it? How do you feel about those? That's why I was asking that. Thank you for sharing that, Abid. That was genuinely very honest. And I know that you have also been part of BIFA Springboard in 2023 and have been to Rotterdam Lab in 2025, and you were nominated by the British Council. So for listeners who may not know what these labs are, can you tell us a bit about them? And I also want to know, what have they actually given you?
Yes. So BIFA Springboard is, you could say, it's a little bit of a lab, a little bit of an incubator. It's for those people who've done a first feature to help them make a second feature. And it's been sponsored by Film 4 and various other organizations that I can't think of right now, but they kind of help you, they mentor you, they put you in touch with someone, they give you a few kind of seminars and workshops throughout the year. Then I think BIFA Springboard has then changed the genre, and now I think it's evolved into something else. And then Rotterdam Labs, which I did in 2025, was this place where I was selected by the British Council, which was amazing, had support from them and BFI. And we picked two, I think, producers, filmmakers from the UK, and it picked one or two from most countries around the world. And we all come together and we're all in the same, almost like situation. And we have a 4-day intensive lab where we discover everything from development pitching all the way down to post-production and
Hmm.
release, and also talking to festivals as well. And that for me was a game changer, more than anything, because I was in a room with other producers who I got to kind of know, build up relationships, but also I felt like um, I passed a milestone. I felt like I belonged in the room, if that makes any sense. We always talk about like opening doors and being in rooms and working, working our ass off and stuff. But like, I actually felt like I belonged there, and I think that gave me the confidence then to move forward. And also as a producer as well, I have to remember that, of course, I produced Granada Nights, but I always saw myself as a director, as a creator, and I think Rotterdam Labs, like, I realized that I am a producer and I'm good at what I do. So I kind of want to follow that and pursue that and help people and kind of connect and
Hmm.
make more films. And I think as a journey as a producer, that really was a game changer for me.
Hmm.
Of course, that opened up lots of doors as well, and
Uh-huh.
connections.
No, of course, of course. That's incredible to have. I was also wondering because earlier we were talking about how important it is to make connections and know people and build your own village in this industry. And of course, then you were talking about how Rotterdam Lab and Be for Springboard kind of felt like you belonged in that room, you got to know people. But of course, it's also important to not getting swayed by all of this because all of these are very exciting indeed. So, how do you balance this? How do you manage to have so many international networks and yet kind of keep yourself grounded so that you can tell your own stories? How do you balance that?
I don't know. I mean, it's like, how do you balance? I mean, I don't see myself as a solely UK based filmmaker.
Hmm.
I see myself on the international stage. I think everything I've done, except for one short film. I think even the short films I've done, they were in Montreal, they were in New York, they were in
Hmm.
like Spain, Berlin. The next features I do are all international. So I don't really see myself on the UK stage. I see myself on the international stage. And I think when you go to, I know a lot of filmmakers, and I was the same when I went to Cannes 10 years ago to meet different filmmakers from all around the world. You realize the industry isn't just the industry where you belong.
Of course.
Sometimes in America, everyone thinks Hollywood is the industry, or the UK thinks the UK is the industry, and it isn't. We're part of this big ecosystem. Today we can't not make films without international partners. I mean, sometimes that's the only way to do it, really. Like it's
Uh-huh.
because of the financing being so difficult. So I always see myself on the international stage, and to juggle that, I'm always working towards that. So I have these milestones throughout the year: Berlin, Cannes.
Hmm.
There's a couple of other festivals I go to during the year markets, and I work towards them, and they're my tent poles, you could say, in my year. So everything is working towards them, or working towards a certain application or lab
Hmm.
that I'm doing. You can get lost in it. You can be doing lots of labs, but I think it's a good thing. There's a period in your life, I think, that you have to do that, and you have to kind of go through. It's the period that you kind of soak up all the information and read every book about script writing and cinematography. And I did that phase, and there's another phase of like traveling around and going to all these labs and festivals and meeting
Hmm.
different people. Um, so yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's fun, but it's also quite difficult as well,
Of course.
because you're also there and you have to bring the energy, you have to be open, you have to be watching films, going out. There's a lot of pressure as well of attending markets and labs.
Thank you, Abid. And I will come back to your personal profile now again, because when I was reading about you, I read that you also founded a company called i5 Films back in 2015. It was long before Granada Nights even came out, long before any of this recognition. What did you want to build with i5, and what is it actually like to run your own film company?
Actually, i5 was formed in 2006, actually, and just
Ah.
i5 on its own. And at the beginning, it was a vehicle, a limited company that I would work as a freelancer. And then
Hmm.
around 2015, it became i5 Films. And the idea was basically, I mean, it was out of necessity at the beginning to create a professional framework, a set of kind of standards, a team of people that we could then go and do various different pieces of content. Um, I5 is kind of it's interesting because now we're at the point where we have a slate of films,
Hmm.
and the way we're doing it, we're building almost like a different team of different films. So we have a different producer writer team on one particular film, and so forth. And it's across the board. There is a thematic kind of line all the way through. It is about belonging and connection and self discovery. Um, but I think it's now become something like more of a film production company. Um, and sorry, I forgot what your answer was there for a moment. Your
I
question.
first wanted to know, like, why did you build i5, which you have answered incredibly. And I also wanted
Yeah, I
to
think
know, what is it actually like to run this film company? Because you're also
yeah,
a filmmaker, you are also running a film company. Is it difficult to do that?
yeah. I mean, it's well, they're for me they're both the same. I mean, everything is done through the company. Sometimes I'm a director on certain projects, sometimes I'm a producer managing the company. I think it's pretty straightforward. We don't have any offices, so everyone works kind of separately. Um, it's there's a lot of management, of course, a lot of spreadsheets. But then I think if you speak to any filmmaker, it is spreadsheets. There's a lot of Excel sheets when you make a film, and it's similar. It's similar running a film company.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm asking this about your company because, of course, when you are coming from any marginalized background at all, sometimes the idea of creating a company and how to do that, how to run that seems so very daunting. So it's very refreshing to know from you, like how you have been running this company for about like 10 years, 11 years now. So that's why I wanted to kind of know from you firsthand, like, how do you feel about it? Is there any particular vision you have with i5 Films?
Not really. It's kind of, I mean, first it was of course created out of necessity, and it just
Mhm,
evolved into something a bit more. Um, but a company is as good as its people, and it's just
mhm,
the team that you have. And I think for me that's more important. I think about the future of like all the producers and writers I work with, and I think about my future all the time. So the company will change, the company will evolve. We are thinking about changing the name as well. Um, it's really, yeah, it's just the people that make it. And
mhm,
there are periods of in those years that it grew, and there's periods that it went really small to like
mhm,
two people, and it's it ebbs and flows. It's just that for me it's just an entity. It will change.
mhm. No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And now, can you tell us a bit more about what are you working on right now that genuinely excites you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm working on a slate of features. I mean, we're doing one at the moment, and it's a co-production between Sweden and Pakistan and Korea, and it follows three women who are stuck in their lives, finding their way through
Mhm,
isolation and loneliness. And it's I guess it's very much like a self-discovery film, and these three stories kind of all interconnect and intercut into each other. And I guess it's goes back to that. The girl that I met who was crying, the Chinese girl on one of my screenings,
oh,
like
wow.
I want to feel less alone in the world. And I think, I wanted to make a film about not just about loneliness, but like not to cure loneliness, but just to recognize it in different cultures and look at different cultures, from a visual perspective as well. Because I'm always fascinated about what's
Mhm,
foreign and um, the way we look at art, the way there's this idea that Western art is always kind of like left to right because of the way we read, but like Eastern art is always kind of like
mhm,
top down, right to left, and the way they make their paintings and films are kind of in that aspect as well. And looking at different kind of visual cultures and bringing that together, and I find that really exciting because it encapsulates all my interests and everything that I've been through. But I think when it comes to kind of making films about a third space, and I think I'm really fascinated by
mhm,
that because I think this idea of a third space is I think a lot of people throw it around, and it kind of loses its meaning sometimes. And it was coined by this post-colonial thinker called Homi Bhabha.
mhm.
He believed when two cultures came together, they didn't just like blend and mix. They created a third space, and it's this third space is in between spaces where new culture is formed. And I kind of like I'm very like fascinated about that. I kind of want to kind of delve into things like that. Hence why you're shooting in 3 different countries. So that's a very art house kind of feature. And then there is another feature which is completely opposite.
Hmm.
It's a commercial comedy drama, and it's about the ringtone industry in the early 2000s and the
Wow.
rise and yeah, so rise and fall of this industry that made billions of people who were buying ringtones, and
Hmm.
the release of probably remember the Crazy Frog that came out around about 2005, 2006. This is before social and went everywhere, viral everywhere. So it looks at this period of the industry, and it's a very kind of Wolf of Wall Street, BlackBerry
Hmm.
kind of film. So yes,
Oh, so
so
lots of breathing, lots of breathing. No.
yeah, it's very funny. It's it's when you're pitching as well, you're talking about a film about isolation and women trying to
Mhm.
find themselves and
Mhm.
loneliness, and then you jump to like the Crazy Frog and ringtones. It's like
But no, all the best to all of those. I hope like we get to see those films as soon as possible.
yes,
I
hope so.
want to know a bit more from you about co-productions because in this podcast we do talk a lot about international co-productions. As I have already mentioned that if you look from outside, it all looks very glamorous. It all looks very exciting. But I'm sure you can give me some firsthand experience about why do one filmmaker decides to do international co-productions? Is it actually helpful?
Yes, I mean, firstly, first we look at story. If the
Mhm.
story is taking place in different countries, then of course it naturally lends itself to being a international co-production. Because I think one of the responsibilities for filmmaker, or what I think, in my opinion, is that you want to create authentic stories. So the idea of flying to a particular country and just shooting that country in that location, and then just coming back without really understanding it or
Yeah.
understanding the people, the culture, is really people see through it. This is we talk about filmmaking as this international kind of forum, but of course, audiences are watching more and more international films now.
Of course.
I mean,
Mhm.
you can't get away with shooting, you know, um, one country for another. You could do this maybe to save costs and stuff, but if you're actually delving into that story in that particular country, in that culture, then you kind of really need to know it. And the best way sometimes is through an
Definitely.
international co-producer. Yeah, they can share. Of course, then it becomes a lot easier to share their culture, but not just the culture that helps the story, but also behind the camera, how different people work, how do Koreans work hours are, how they differ to European work hours, also in the States with unions and everything. And I think it starts to make sense that you have to have that partner in an international place. And of course, financing helps as well. Like sometimes now, I think it's a little bit difficult to finance films in the UK,
Mhm.
and everyone is now looking into building this jigsaw piece with finance in other countries.
Mhm.
Everyone's going to give you a little portion, and then you kind of build this picture up. But for me personally, I've always gone to a particular country because I want to kind of capture a story from that country. There's something about it. Location is always a character for me, and um, for me, I love to always partner with someone and go there and stay there and live there and breathe it and feel it. And it kind of it stems from Granada Nights, but at Granada Nights, I lived in Granada for about a year, well, 2 years, I think, in total. And I go back so regularly that I kind of really understood the culture, the place, the
Yeah.
people, and I was able to hit the ground running. And I think um, for me, I think it's essential.
Mhm.
It's how we make films nowadays. Unfortunately, I mean,
Yeah.
not fortunately, actually. I think this idea that we just do a UK film and we film in our back garden. I mean, for me personally, like I don't find that interesting. I'm always attracted to the aesthetic of what's foreign, but I also financially, I just don't think it's possible anymore.
Yeah, yeah. No, what I'm getting from your answer is, of course, sometimes creatively you feel like you want to be cross-border, but there is also a financial reality to it, which we often don't talk about. So thank you for
Mm.
sharing, Abid. I know that we are talking about your wonderful journey and the wonderful work you are doing in search of third space, which I find it is absolutely beautiful. But can you tell us a bit more about what sort of barriers you have faced so far, Abid? Is there anything in particular which is kind of stopping you or have stopped you to tell the kind of stories you want to tell?
I think I would say it hasn't stopped me, but I think the difficulty is sometimes that people don't understand the other side.
Mhm.
Um, and it's almost like when you're pitching, you're also educating in a way. You're educating your own culture. When I talk about the story that we have set in Pakistan to people who are maybe from the West, I have to explain certain viewpoints and certain characters would behave in a certain way, but I have to kind of educate while I'm pitching as well. So it's trying to help the other partners and the financiers to really understand what it means to, be a Pakistani girl living in the mountains. Um, and I guess, that's kind of every storyteller filmmaker's job in a way. We have to tell that story from the beginning. We have to understand it and we have to help other people understand it.
Mhm.
Um, this idea of, a third space, I think, when I was growing up, I felt like I was bridging a gap between two different cultures. And I kind of feel like I'm doing that sometimes when we're pitching to different international
Mhm.
partners. Um, and of course, it's difficult. But I think just like my life and how I grew up, I feel like instead of shying away from it, it starts to become a bit of a superpower. I feel like I can move freely between different cultures. Um, and I also feel, I mean, it's in my opinion that people who are born in between these two different cultures
Mhm.
had a particular calling or purpose in life as connectors, as storytellers,
Yeah.
to be able to bridge these spaces in between and bring the world closer together.
Mhm.
And I think it helps more and more, more and more people doing international co-productions. It's just the world is getting kind of closer and closer together.
Of course, of course. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was also wondering something from our earlier conversation, Abid, because you talked about how we have so many few role models from the South Asian community, for example, in the film industry. So sometimes it's probably hard for us to think that I can also do that. Of course, times are changing. Of course, maybe the industry is trying to be a bit more open. Maybe we are being a bit more courageous to take careers, which we haven't seen before. But still, since you are in the industry and you are very much in the community as well, I want to know from you, do you have any suggestions about how we can have more South Asian representation in the film industry or in any art scenario at all? Do you have any suggestions for that? What should we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think across the board, I think a lot of people talk about diversity and inclusion.
Mhm.
And it's great because we weren't having those conversations 10, 20 years, but doesn't seem to be that much action.
Yeah.
I give you an example. I had a Canadian Indian producer who was calling a organization up in the UK to find out a major organization,
Mhm.
let's say a national organization, to see like if they had a list, if they could get the list of kind of black and ethnic minority
Mhm.
directors,
Mhm.
um, and they didn't have that list. And it's like, okay, one of the most simple things that you could have is a list,
Yeah.
a table. People can register. If you need a female, there was a project I was working on. I was looking at a female, Muslim female Pakistani writer
Mhm.
under the age of 25 because it was a
Mhm.
youth story. Um, I had to dig and dig and dig and to find that
Yeah.
information. So I think, the information isn't there. I think it needs to be open. I think there needs to be more inclusion, diversity on film boards as
Mhm.
well, people in power. Um, there needs just to be a lot more support. And, things are changing, things are evolving, but it's happening at such a slow pace.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we need more situations, we need more communities, we need more podcasts like this, to help kind of help elevate everybody and to bring those conversations to the forefront. And I think we only learn by talking to each other. And I think like when I was growing up, I would have loved to have this podcast to learn about the people who've done it before and to help like bring a bit of inspiration or see that there is a career path.
Yeah.
But these are very far and few between, and they need to be facilitated here in the UK, but also across the world at all the major film festivals and markets. I feel like not enough is being done on that
Mm.
area.
Mhm. Of course, of course. Thank you so much for sharing. Because my feeling about this is same. I'm not a filmmaker. I don't belong to the film industry. But my PhD research looks into how South Asian women are participating in the UK film industry. And I'm kind of in the middle of my research right now. And I'm seeing the same thing of it. Like, of course, maybe they're trying, but it's not enough. It's not enough. So, yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about diversity and inclusion, and those are such popular buzzwords right now. But if we compare to how much we talk about those, actually enough is not being done. Thank you so much for
There's
sharing on this.
there's so much there's so much talent as well around. There's so much talent at universities at grassroots levels, but they're not given the opportunity to step up, or the door's not open to them. And I think it's just it's extremely sad. I mean, I'm always trying to find ways of like to helping and mentoring other people, but
Yeah.
it's a very difficult industry.
Of course, of course. Thank you, Abid. We are kind of at the end of our conversation now, but before we say goodbye, I want to know from you if a young South Asian emerging filmmaker or somebody who just want to tell a story, and if they are coming from a marginalized background, and if they are afraid of where to go and what would you tell them? Do you have anything in particular to say to these people?
Yeah, I guess, knowing why you want to make a film. Um, and I guess this doesn't really matter where your background is from. I mean, sometimes we can use our background as fuel sometimes, and get us through like difficult moments, and
Mhm.
to fight harder, like we always fight as like South Asians. But I think like understanding why you want to make a film, because I think there are going to be moments where it goes well, but it's going to be moments where you're going to have setback after setback after setback. I think that's when you need to go deep down and really understand why you're making this film, and then keep pushing forward, keep working, keep doing, make things with your friends, just live as well. I mean, I think going back to that earlier advice by Mike Figures, where he said make stuff with your friends and live. Um,
Mhm.
I think that is fundamentally like one of the most important things I think behind filmmaking.
Of course. Thank you so much for sharing. I really enjoyed the conversation. Hope you did too. But
Me
thank
too,
you so
definitely.
much for all your time and so many honest, genuine answers. Thank you, Abid.
Thank you very much. It's been wonderful.